Hello, I'm Consuela Harrison, and I started a video talking about my marital journey, part one, but I never finished part two. So we're going to do story time, and I want to tell you what ended up happening in my situation. So I took a few notes because it's been a while since I talked about this, but this is our story time, and I like to call it Marital Faith Journey, part two. So in the first video, I talked about, if you didn't see it, go back and look at it. But I talked about the importance of filtering your environment. In other words, you have to know what you're looking for and know who's around you. So in my personal situation, I was saying that I had been dating and I realized that the guys I was dating, that they weren't on the same page. They weren't looking for the same things I was looking for. And so I filtered my environment and I realized that they were not the ones that I should have been spending my time with. Then the other thing is, I talked about the things that I had. I had a list of the different things I was looking for because remember, I'd never been married and I had been single, but I was happy in my singleness. But I'd come to a point where, especially around holidays, and like we just finished these holidays, and I don't know if who's ever watching this video, if you're dealing with the same thing, but I would always get, I guess you'd say, kind of lonely around the holidays because everyone had families. And although I have sisters and I have nieces and nephews, I always came to a point where I was like, I want my special person to spend time with. So I started praying and I was like, Lord, go back and watch part one. It'll tell you how I got to that point and how I had started. I was like, let me reposition and let me refocus my thinking. And I made some adjustments. The other thing I talked about is that I had said in my prayer time with God, once I realized I needed to filter my environment, then I prayed and I said, Lord, send me someone who loves you more than they love me. Because I said that a lot of times you'll meet people, men and women, who will find out that you're a Christian and that you go to church, and they may start going to church with you because they really like you and they'll do what they feel will be appealing to you, but they may not have their own relationship. So that was one thing that I said. I wanted someone who loved God more than they loved me. I also said I wanted someone who'd respect me, who was compatible with me, and also someone I was attracted to. Sometimes I meet people and they're like, well, they love the Lord and we go to church together and we like some of the same things, but you're not attracted to them. So my biggest thing was I dated people, and my biggest thing is I wanted to be attracted to them, because if you're not attracted to them and you don't have a natural attraction, it's easy to maybe be geared or steer in a different direction. So you want somebody who you'll be attracted to even years down the road, because remember, as we get older, you may get with people because you think they're attractive or you're compatible, but as we get older, we change. And so if you with someone and you just with them just because, we go to the same places or this or that, remember, how we start out in these relationships is not how we're going to look like 10, 15, 20 years from now. And if you don't have anything, if you're not even attracted to them or no compatibility, it's going to be really hard to maintain something that you didn't see in them that you wanted at the beginning. And then also, I said, when I look at the person that comes in my life, I want to be happy to be with them. I want to be happy to be with them. You have some people, they like, well, I'll take them because nobody else wants them. Well, who wants that type of situation? But you should want people that maybe other people be attracted to, but more importantly, that you're attracted to. So I made notes from that because it was so long ago. Again, I apologize for the lateness on part two. But I think the biggest thing for me was, when I was ready to date and ready to find the person that I feel that God was sending for me, I really wanted to be in the right place because I began to do the work. And so many times you meet people, and I talked about getting rid of baggage. I talked about making sure you're not bringing in old things into a new relationship. You have to be careful because sometimes you go into these new relationships and you have triggers that have not been identified. And then you get with another person and you're reacting with them. You may be overreacting. It's because a trigger is that you've not identified and something is not healed inside of you. I think the biggest thing, even as I finish this part two, I think as we get ready to go in 2026, I think it's time for us to get in a place where we're doing soul searching, where we're trying to work through and see what areas we need to improve in, areas we need to work on, because you always have to do the work. Like you have people, they want to get counseling, and it's okay. I'm totally aligned with counseling. I'm totally aligned with having spiritual guidance, but I also believe that you've got to do the work. You've got to identify the areas that you want to perfect or get better in, and you got to be willing to do the work. And I always say the work is several things. Like you can have a counselor, spiritual guidance, but you also have to pray. Like we used to say in days of old, you got to pray through. You have to get on your knees and cry out to God and say, Lord, it's some things in me that are not working. It's some things in me that need to be changed. And you have to want to change, because you can pray and ask God to change, but you also have to do the work. So where you normally would get angry about something, this is an example. Where you normally get angry about something, you have to literally work on your temper, work on temperance, especially if it's little things because of past experiences. So you have to identify those things. But I want to finish out this. This is fun. That particular teaching is for another video. But with the marital journey, my marital faith journey. So once I identified what I wanted, and then I had gone to, and this is just, I'm going to fast forward it because there's so many details, but I'd gone to lunch, and when I went to lunch, my mom always told me years ago, she said, when you meet the one, you'll know it right away. And I never knew what she meant because I had never met the one. So anyway, so we met for lunch, and I'm just kind of fast forwarding, and we met for lunch. And when we met, it was so ironic because, in the conversation, it was so easy. I didn't go with expectations. A lot of us go on dates, and we go and meet people with the idea of, oh, I hope he's my husband. I didn't go with that idea. I didn't go with that type of mindset. I just went and said, well, I hope I like the guy, and hopefully it'll work out. If not, I'll go home and take a nap. I'm literally telling you what I told my niece. I said, I'm going to meet this guy. We're going to have lunch, and we'll just see what happens. And I think sometimes we put so many expectations. We make extra stress for ourselves and for others. And I didn't do that. And so when I met him, we laughed the entire time. It was just we were so compatible naturally. And we had so many things that we asked questions. It wasn't like a drilling thing. Like, what do you believe about this? What do you do this? Why do you do this? What do you think? We didn't do, it was just a conversation. And I think a lot of times, we go into these experiences and these encounters, and we're just like attorneys, or we're just like drill sergeants, and we're asking all these questions, but just let things happen organically. And that's what happened in my situation. We had lunch. It was great. We laughed the whole time. In fact, it was going to be like an hour and a half. And then it ended up being 2 hours or 2.5 hours because it was so natural and we were at ease. And I can tell you that the date went so well, or the encounter went so well, he asked me out a week later, and we've been together ever since. So I'm telling you, I think a lot of this, and that's just the Cliff Note version. But I think a lot of times when you're going to meet people, first you have to know that you're in a good place. You have to be in a place where you're ready for a connection, and you have to go there not hoping that they're going to add so much value back to you. In other words, you have to already know you're complete. You have to already know that what you're bringing is a good package, and that you're the very best of yourself. You're always evolving, but you want to be the better or the best version of yourself. So when you're going to meet people, what you should be presenting is the better version of yourself at that state of time in your life. Don't go there saying, oh, I hope he likes me. Oh, I hope he thinks no, you go there knowing that I am a child of God. I am doing the work on myself. I am working to improve and to be a person that can add value to other people's lives. And then when you go look at them, have your list in mind, especially the one about making sure they love God more than they love you. You can adopt that if you like. I really recommend you do if you are a Christian, because you want somebody who really loves God and has a relationship. Because I'm going to tell you, if you deal with a man who has a relationship with God, he'll be careful about how he deals with you. But if you have a person who is not a Christian, who is not saved, and you're saved, then they have no bounds as to how they'll act toward you, because they have no parameters, because they're not subject to the Most High God. But if you're with someone who has a real relationship with God, they'll be careful how they entreat you. I'm telling you, it's very imperative. Everything in our spiritual life does transcend into the natural. We used to say first natural, then spiritual. But it's all about how you approach life and your thinking. Because as a man thinketh, so is he. And as whatever you put out, you attract to yourself. You draw to you. So you have to make sure that you're becoming a better version of yourself. So this is part 2 of my marital faith journey. And God moved for me. I prayed. I asked God to move. I did the work. And then when I went with no expectations, and everything happened organically because it was in the perfect will of God. God bless you.